Here at Bowes Museum they know all about special effects. Never mind a computer-generated image, here there's an example of centuries-old wizardry that created an illusion so lifelike it's thrilled anyone who's seen it in action. So when the famous silver swan needed an overhaul, we were there as an expert clockmaker took it all apart. But that was the easy bit.
This is the start of a 3-month journey into the unknown, a marvel of 18th century engineering. But taking it apart when there are no plans is risky. Very few people could be trusted to dismantle the museum's prized possession and ensure it can be returned to full working order.
I literally wake up in the middle of the night. I'm anxious because we're already up to many hundreds of individual components and, not one of those can be confused, obviously.
First to be measured, cleaned and documented are the decorative silver leaves. Matthew and his team don't know it yet, but when they get into the mechanics, the swan will reveal a few secrets about its past. It feels like an autopsy. Removing the silver skin reveals a lifelike skeleton.
Personally, I think it's quite horrific, isn't it? It's otherworldly, shall we say. Certainly, as far as I've seen, this is the most natural in its movement and realistic. Right in the heart of the machine here, we have the multifunction cam, which is the brain of the thing, if you like. Here, the sector that rotates the swan's neck round the vertical axis, which is controlled by a zigzagged track. So altogether, coordinated is something quite unbelievable, really.
The renovation is being carried out in full view of an inquisitive public. A unique chance to see the inner workings behind the normally beautiful, radiant swan that greeted all visitors to Bowes Museum, including its patron, the late Queen Mother. No one's sure who created this captivating life-size musical extravagance. It's thought the inventor, Joseph Merlin, worked out the design, but he can't take all the credit.
What we must understand is that not one person made this machine. If you were to walk around 18th century London, you could get anything made basically in these very small workshops, and that is what the Swan is. Very high quality, very competent work made by probably hundreds of people, not just one or two.
This whole musical element really needs looking at closely in order to get it running reliably. Now it's decided it's going to play 2 tunes at once. I don't understand the musical element of it in that sense, but it is struggling because we feel that maybe the mainspring could be original, we don't know yet until we have the thing in bits, but it's running out of puff at the end of the cycle.
The Bowes archives reveal the moving musical swan was originally an attraction at a London museum of automata. But this description from 1773 reveals not all of the exhibit has survived.
A swan, large as life, formed of silver, filled with mechanism, beating time with its beak to musical chimes terminating at the top with a rising sun upward of 3 feet diameter, the whole 18 feet high.
By the time it ended up in the grand surroundings of Bowes Museum, that large sun had vanished. The swan had caught the eye of John and Josephine Bowes as they travelled Europe collecting artefacts to bring back to Barnard Castle, and they picked it up for a knockdown price.
When they saw it the first time, it was actually up for sale for about £2,000, and they actually eventually bought it for £200, so it was up for sale originally for 10 times the price they actually paid for it. So they got quite a good bargain with it.
They'd seen the swan at the Great Exhibition in Paris several years before, but perhaps it wasn't bought for its stunning musical dance. There's a clue in the receipt. All the silver had been weighed. Could John Bowes have been investing in precious metal and not a work of art? Matthew, meanwhile, has borrowed some industrial equipment at Durham University to get at the swan's vital organs, the mainsprings. These smaller ones pack a bit of a punch, so when they get to the bigger ones, they'll need extra care.
You can see from the 18th century or 19th century spring that the spring is actually quite tired. It's been doing its work there for probably 100 years or more. So they're not as lively as they would have been when they were new. I mean, quite how they were fitted in the first instance. Who knows?
How she blows. Lovely, aren't they? Well, it's old, isn't it? Certainly 19th century, could be 18th century. Wonderful thing.
With every single piece taken apart and documented, it's time to think about reassembling the swan and hoping it'll work. The sheer skill of the original workmanship is being revealed. The precision needed to make the chains and runners inside the neck is astounding, and some past secrets are now coming to light.
In the 1970s assembly, the fish all moved in a very small area and all in the same direction. They came into the centre, so when the swan's head came down, they all darted backwards. From the evidence that we have, we believe the original setup was for the fish to come together in the centre, the swan's head to come down, catch a fish, and the fish would dart back due to fear.
And a spectacular theory has emerged by placing the swan's frame into an original casing that has been gathering dust on a shelf.
Not only is the tub riveted, but it's also sealed with a kind of pitch or mastic, if you like. So at some stage during the design and manufacturing process, it's reasonable to say that there was an intention that real water would be used. The swan was meant to float like a real swan, if you like. So you would take the bathtub out of its frame and put it on some real water and allow it to sail around with some real swans.
A former resident at Bowes can reveal how the swan might never have seen the light of day again. Margaret ASQUITH's dad was a curator who stumbled on the swan quite by chance down in the cellars.
One day he brought a box with a lot of silver leaves in, but they were black, tarnished, and it was a mystery as to what they were for. And that's the first sign of the swan, anyway. And then he brought the glass rods up, and they were filthy.
Those rods were to create the rippling water effect under the swan, and they too are getting a deep clean.
It'll be transformed, the difference will be incredible. The reflection of the light passing through the rod onto the silver and reflecting back onto the swan will be incredible.
In just under 3 months, it's been stripped and cleaned. Every screw is uniquely handmade, so has to go back in exactly the right hole. But have they been able to reassemble it in working order? The moment of truth is when it's unveiled to an eager audience. As it's put back on display, Matthew is as wound up about this as the swan itself. With centuries-old clockwork, there's no guarantee it will start up when he presses the button.
Oh, it's absolutely magnificent. Yeah, and it's just so lifelike. I think it's not as hesitant as it was. Just an absolute work of art.
It looks in wonderful working order. It's a credit to the team that have worked on it.
The biggest difference, I think, is the music. It's clearer, brighter. It's just a more beautiful sound.
And the big question? Were there any screws left over?
No, is the answer. We've no 18th century screws left over, so I can sleep reasonably soundly tonight.
Well, that's it for tonight. Don't forget you can email me, chrisjackson@bbc.co.uk, and you can see the programme again on the iPlayer. But whatever you do, join me next Wednesday.